Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Commitment to Change conversation. And it's an amazing one because we are so excited that every single credit union league in the United States is a member of AACUC. And with that, I am so happy to be joined with an amazing team of some of our league presidents that are leading the way in this partnership with the AACUC in our credit union DEI journey. So with that, and by the way, my name is Juan Fernandez Ceballos. I'm the president and CEO of the Credit Union Association of New Mexico. I will pass it over to Patty. Patty, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your credit union DEI journey?
Oh, thanks, Juan. Thanks, everybody. It's great to be here with my colleagues. Patty Corkery, and I'm the president and CEO of the Michigan Credit Union League. So I started in the industry back in January of 2000. It's been a while, and joined the league in 2018. So I'm really happy to be serving as the league president currently. I think I'll have an opportunity later to dig into our DEI journey, but I just want to introduce myself and thank everyone for being here.
Thank you so much, Patty. And John, you and I met a long time ago on a plane. We've known each other for a number of years. John, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your credit union journey?
Sure. So thanks, Juan, and thanks to AACUC for inviting me back for this webinar and this Commitment to Change discussion. So I started my journey with credit unions about 34 years ago, right out of college, going to a job fair, had no idea what credit unions were out in Indiana, and started to work for one of John McKenzie's credit unions at Teachers. Started my career there, went up to Patty's neck of the woods into Michigan, worked for a credit union there, and then went to Illinois as CEO of a credit union and working for a large credit union prior to coming to the association. So kind of everything from a teller to a CEO. So it's been a great opportunity and a great career.
Thank you so much, John. And speaking of John McKenzie, John, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your credit union journey?
Yeah, great to be part of this panel. And I started in the credit union system in the early 80s when the corporate credit union system was really being formed and evolving. So at that time, Indiana has its own corporate credit union. So that's where my career started. And then I had the opportunity to move from that position over to the league side. The organizations were partners, but they weren't completely integrated. I took over the Service Corp in the mid 80s, and then had the opportunity to follow the legendary Pete Career, who was the league president in Indiana in the late 80s. I became the league president in 1990. And I've been in that position since then. I feel very blessed and fortunate to be able to have been in Indiana all these years, working with the great credit union people in our state. It's such a wonderful, collaborative credit union culture focused on service to the members, and the discussion of DEI and issues that touch on the fabric of what credit unions stand for and their substance has just gone great in our state, because it just fits perfectly with the nature of the credit union CEO and other leadership in our state, and it's just been wonderful to be able to be in this position with the Association for the Credit Unions in the state all these years, working with a great group of people.
So let's continue on. Mark, you're joining us from Minnesota. So Mark, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your journey?
Well, thanks, Juan. Mark Cummins, President of Minnesota Credit Union Network. Pleasure to be, and it is actually afternoon now in Minnesota. So glad to join that. If you look out our window, we've got about 6 inches of snow here in downtown St. Paul. So for those of you that don't have that opportunity to enjoy snow, you're welcome, anytime to be with us. My introduction to credit unions, like many that are in credit unions today, came from a banking background for a dozen years, working for a large bank in Colorado and looking to make a change. In those days, you actually went to the newspaper and looked at want ads in the newspaper, and actually kind of read my own resume in the newspaper, but it was for a credit union. And I was fortunate enough to get that opportunity to work at a teachers credit union in Pueblo, Colorado for a number of years, and then to become CEO of a credit union in downtown Denver. And in that time frame, I was also involved at the Colorado League in those days, and was a vice chair of the Colorado League when I was given the opportunity to come to Minnesota as a league president here, where I've been for 16 years now, and glad to be part of AACUC, and especially, my relationship with AACUC was really cemented when I noticed that Grace Sanchez was on the staff at AACUC. That's the number one part for me to ensure that I stay involved here.
Thank you so much, Mark. And by the way, Mark, for those of you that were not with us at AACUC last week, we enjoyed very much roasting Mark since he is retiring next year. It's been a pleasure working alongside you, Mark, and thank you for all your leadership all these years. So last but not least, the person I actually know most in this, or longest in this panel, which is Ron McLean. Ron and I met 17, 18 years ago in the New York League. So Ron, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us about your journey?
Thanks, Juan. And hi, everyone. Ron McLean, CEO of the Cooperative Credit Union Association. We're a 4-state league, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Delaware. And Mark, ditto to your comments about Grace, just a first-class individual, and pleasure to work with her and the team. So my career started out in banking, like Mark. From there, shifted over to Putnam Investments, a very large mutual fund company. My wife dragged me to where she grew up in Albany, New York. And I had 2 job offers. One was with a fairly large regional brokerage, and the other was with the New York State Credit Union League. And the New York League offered me $1,000 more. And that was back in 1994, and $1,000 was a lot of money back then. So that was probably the best decision I made in my life, second to marrying my wife. But I was there 25 great years. I became the CEO at CCUA about 3.5 years ago. I kind of came back home to where I grew up in the Boston area. And like all of my league president peers, just an absolute joy to be league president. And Juan, to be working again with you as a peer is fantastic too. So thanks, Juan.
Thank you, Ron. So let's get to the meat of the conversation, so to speak. And by the way, good morning to anyone joining from New Mexico or the West Coast, since it is still morning here. So as I mentioned, we've reached an awesome achievement, which is that every single credit union association has a partnership with AACUC. Sometimes great innovation and great partnerships happen out of crisis. And of course, this all happened after the murder of George Floyd. So Patty, I'll start with you. In the past years, how has your partnership between your association, your league, and AACUC helped you with dealing with DEI?
Well, I think you can have a membership in something and we can all check a box, right, that we're a member. But in order to have value, you have to really engage. And for me, my experience has been trying to broaden. For years, I was in a Michigan credit union bubble, and I wasn't networking with folks around the country. And I think AACUC, the first time I had heard of the organization was when my friend Harold Holmes here in Michigan was being honored with an award. And then I saw that they had a booth at our convention, and I really started to kind of connect the dots and learn more about what they do. But I feel for myself, before, as running a trade association now, I had a lot of education to do for myself. I was way behind, I believe, in the DEI space. And wanted to make sure that I knew for myself so I could bring in the rest of our credit union members. And just being present and participating in what AACUC offers, which is a huge array of things, I was excited to be included in the cross-cultural exchange program. And I participated with that. I got connected with my partner, Vanessa Kudak, a members credit union in Connecticut. She really explained to me what Juntos Avanzamos was. was. I didn't really know what that designation meant. And within like 2 months later, I was at MSU FCU here in Michigan when they were receiving the designation. And through working with Vanessa and meeting her through that program via Zoom, I learned all about that. I also was thrilled to be a part of the pilot program of one-to-one women mentorship. And I know Shelly Mitchell, my friend who's on this call, she was inspired and encouraged by Renee to launch that. And I was thrilled to be a part of that mentorship program. I am still in connection with Christina Hancock, who I met at school's first credit union. And then we hired Shelly to run that program for us here in Michigan. And we did a whole nother cohort here. And so I think for me, it's the engagement. And when I get involved, I bring the rest of my Michigan community with me. We held for the first time ever a DEI event in person this past fall. It was called CU for All. And for a first time event, we had just about 100 participants in person there. The whole day spent on DEI. We had all of our friend Jill Nowacki as one of our speakers, really digging in with us on the topics. And so I think, you know, it's a long answer and I want to save time, but I think for me personally, and this isn't to be, you know, trying to suck up in any way to Renee, but it's really her passion for this space. So when I think of AACUC, I think of her. And I listened to her podcast on my drive in this morning with our friend Randy at CU Experience, and her commitment to the 8th cooperative principle and how she explains it. I just want to get on that wagon. And I want to bring our Michigan credit unions along for the ride. So that's been my journey.
Thank you so much, Patty. And I think you're absolutely right. None of this would be happening or would have happened without the leadership of Renee and of the next person, John Britsakas. It's my understanding, John, that you were one of the league leaders that said, hey, we need to do this. So why don't you tell us a little bit about why you made that choice, that call, along with some of your peers, and how has this partnership helped you in your DEI journey?
Yeah, thanks. Coming to the association here, we had a long history and relationship with AACUC, especially I know he's here, Adrian Johnson, at the time when the George Floyd murder happened. He was the chairman of AACUC at the time, and Caroline Willard had brought up during a league president's call, our counterpart from Cornerstone, about doing something, trying to be very intentional about doing something. And Mark was like, it has to be something that's not just a one time. And my first call, separate from that conversation, was to Renee in another conversation about, with our team, what do we need to do to be purposeful, to be intentional? I had made a commitment to our internal team that this wouldn't be a one-time type of thing that we do as an organization. And then in parallel was the discussion with the league presidents. I reached out to Caroline and said, hey, I'm going to reach out to Adrian and Renee to talk about, let them guide us, have them help us understand what's the most effective way to do this. And that's when Renee said, hey, why don't we get all of the leagues as part of AACUC? And why don't we work on getting, a 3-year commitment to that and getting everyone on board? And I think when Caroline came back and we talked to the other league presidents, it wasn't a very long discussion other than, we need to be committed. And then for us as an organization, as we were going through that, I have to thank Renee specifically, because a lot of our conversations were offline and just between the two of us. And one of the things we wanted to do was be very intentional. So we created for ourselves locally, we did a DEI speaker series that we would do about every 3 weeks for about 18 months. We started doing that with different speakers and different folks. We also wanted to look at, when talking with our credit unions, how do we provide tools for them? So one was we sought and worked with Georgetown University to create a specific Georgetown University certification program for credit unions. So, they go through that. It's an intense cohort program that takes 3 months to get through. And Some have been on that with us that are, I know, on the call or on the Zoom. And then the other component was, on the front end, there were a lot of credit unions that wanted to understand and talk about terminology, talk about, just have the introduction to that conversation. So our team, led by Michelle on our team, Parker, along with some of our friends over at State Employees Credit Union here in Maryland and IDB Global and others, stepped forward, and we created it was about a 12-month project, but created a DEI 101, kind of a fundamentals of diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we have a lot of collaboration, like Patty mentioned. Jill Nowacki was part of that. Renee is part of that, because I think, as Renee usually says often, is right. This isn't just about race. DEI is not just about race. It's about it's a holistic approach to everything, right? It's race, it's gender, it's identity, it's all of those things that we all work to and work through. So being intentional and purposeful, that's been our goal, is to make sure that it becomes woven into the fabric of what we do, so it doesn't just stand out there all by itself or become just a one-time effort.
Thank you, John. And out of curiosity, you said that you have had a long-standing partnership with AACUC. Can you shine light as to how that got started and why?
Well, it predates myself, and what I would say is from what I've seen and what I've observed is we've worked together with AACUC, both our staff, our community. We have, I know Lynette's on this call, but we have, a fairly large percentage of our credit union CEOs are African American, which I think leads to the support for the program. Bert Hash was chairman of the board, and there were just a lot of engagement. And to be honest, when I came to the association, MICU welcomed me with open arms. So Adrian and Bert and John Hamilton and the whole crew brought me in as part of the family. And, I felt just at home. And then when all of this went on, as I've said to Renee in the past, AACUC created an environment to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And putting yourself out there, I thought, was one of the greatest things that AACUC allowed the credit union community to do, is get comfortable being uncomfortable.
Thank you, John. That was outstanding. John McKenzie, on to you. I know you're representing the Midwest, a different state, different demographic makeup than Maryland. So how has this partnership helped you in your DEI journey and helped your credit unions in Indiana?
Well, it's been tremendous. Renee was the first individual that we had speak about DEI in the state of Indiana in 2020. And it's, the information from AACUC, from Renee, her passion has been such an influence on our goal of creating awareness, of providing information, of providing leadership on DEI in the state of Indiana. During that time, we've become more familiar with the tremendous annual conference that the AACUC puts on, and we're looking to support that with a new scholarship that we just established that will be funding for a representative of an Indiana credit union to attend, along with league representation. Our league chairwoman, Karen Madry, who's an African-American woman, and in fact, our entire executive committee is female for our league association here. Just provides tremendous leadership. She attended the conference this year, and just it was so inspiring for her, and then she in turn inspires us. So just a lot of ways in which this partnership has helped us in our journey to try to do our part as the Indiana Credit Union Association in terms of influence in our credit unions. And I'm just so pleased that Whitney Anderson Harrell's on your board. We have some other credit unions who have taken great initiatives, Purdue FCU, some others with DEI initiatives. So again, it all started with Renee and her inspiring presentation. And then she came back to convention this year, and we put her to work right away with 2 sessions that continued that momentum. So we look forward to how this partnership can continue to build on the foundation that it's already made available as we look forward to doing even more.
Thank you so much, Don. I got to tell you, I'm so happy that this is being recorded because I wish my whole team was part of this, because I am so inspired by this conversation and the awesome things that these leagues are doing in their states in partnership with AACUC. And Mark, I know that what you guys are starting in Minnesota is amazing. So why don't you answer the same question? How has the partnership with AACUC helped you and your credit unions and your league through your DEI journeys?
Well, thanks, Juan. And it was mentioned earlier about the murder of George Floyd, which of course is here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, in Minnesota. But even prior to that, with the murder and death of Philando Castile, really started the movement towards forming a Black-led credit union in North Minneapolis, which is a financial desert, much to the shame to all of us who, it's an area that has overlapping fields of membership for a number of credit unions, but really no branches within there to serve the community. And a number of institutions there have come and have gone, and the community has felt the departure each time that's happened. And so let me just kind of, back up a little bit from that. As here in Minnesota, watching the news of the murder of George Floyd, and I don't know if many of you saw, but in one of the backgrounds of one of the pictures is actually a Metro bus that had one of our signs on it about "Open your eyes to a credit union" in the back of the video of the officers on the neck of George Floyd. And so we were involved from the moment that well before that happened, but we had skin in the game for a long time. I think the thing for us as the trade association and our involvement with AACUC really comes back to the fact that, at the time that happened, the Twin Cities community really, especially from a business perspective, came out with a lot of statements about things that they were going to do and change. And we talked about it here at the network about, we're not going to make a statement, we're going to do. That was our emphasis. We're going to do something. We want to be involved in ways that make a systemic, lasting change that makes a real difference. And helping people to achieve financial stability is a huge part of a thing that can make a change within a community, and is so desperately needed in North Minneapolis. And so the Association for Black Economic Power has been working to start a credit union. And other than a lot of credit unions that has started that have a backer that has a lot of money, this is an organization that has no money and it has to go out and fundraise to do that. And we worked with the Association for Black Economic Power to really understand what it takes to form a credit union. But I've got to say, AACUC also really stepped up and working with Denise from AACUC has been incredible. She's been such a great resource especially for ABEP. When you talk about the Association for Black Economic Power, or ABEP, really has a employee, and to try to set up a credit union in that regard just takes a lot of work and a lot of hand-holding. And one of the things that we did here as part of that, besides providing a lot of support, we pretty much have had an FTE involved in this process for over a year with that too. But we were tasked with, wasn't my idea, I'm telling you this, but we were basically tasked with raising $1 million of capital to start a credit union. How many industries can you go through and say, we're going to start a new competitor in your backyard and we would like you to help us fund that? And no other industry would do that kind of thing. And thanks to the generosity of the credit unions throughout Minnesota and also with our partners and CUNA Mutual and others, we're able to hit that goal. But it's been interesting in that process, because even here where we're at ground zero, we watched our city burn and we're trying to come out of the ashes and build something with that. Still a lot of resistance in terms of participation, of what that means from a whole variety of ways of whether it's just, new institutions fail. We're not going to put money into something that doesn't work, that doesn't happen, or the demographics of the area where this is just a metropolitan issue. This is not a part of rural Minnesota. And what we're trying to do through this is show the example that this affects everybody everywhere. And we have really worked hard to try to help our credit unions to understand that the demographics of Minnesota are changing rapidly. And the growth that is happening here is from a lot of different ethnic communities that are here. We have one of the largest, if not the largest, Somali community in the United States in the metropolitan area. And we are seeing in a rural area of a lot of folks that are coming in from the Hispanic culture that are working in rural jobs in rural Minnesota. So things are changing. When I first came here to Minnesota, I said diversity was you were either blonde or brunette, or your last name ended in SON or SEN. With that, and our state is changing, and part of our obligation is to use resources such as AACUC and others to help our folks understand the demography and what's changing, not only in the metropolitan areas, but also in rural areas, because it's changing everywhere. And it's really incumbent upon us to reach out to all these different communities to bring them into the credit union movement and help them stand themselves up for their own financial future. So we're proud to be part of AACUC, to be partners in the work that they do, because they've been a great resource in working with us to help start Arise Credit Union, which I'm proud to say now has actually filed their charter with both our state and federal regulator to work on getting insurance. So now it's in the regulatory phase. So we're excited about where we are and look forward to what's coming next.
That's awesome, Mark. And I know we're not ready to make an announcement yet, but you may not even know this, but our staffs are working on brokering a relationship, a partnership between your state and my state, in partnership with AACUC to help deepen understanding and cross-cultural acuity. So I think that's going to be really awesome, really exciting. And once again, another example of things we're doing in partnership with AACUC that wouldn't be possible without the great work that Renee and her team are making possible. So thank you. And I know you have been in the center of it all, and I'm sure it was a painful conversation at times in Minnesota. So thank you for your leadership, and thanks for bringing credit unions together. I think it's so exciting and inspiring to see what the credit unions in Minnesota in partnership with AACUC are doing in that community. So thank you. Ron, same question to you.
Sure. Thanks, Juan. And for us, AACUC quickly established themselves as kind of the voice for DEI within the credit union system, the conscience for DEI within the credit union system. There's nobody we trust more on DEI than AACUC. For me, it was about applying DEI to my staff, our team, our board, our membership. I'm very proud to say that we are more diverse today from a board perspective, from a staff perspective, and that feels really, really good. So two things about the partnership. Early on, and Renee probably had a million of these phone calls. This one meant a lot to me, but if, sensitive conversations need to take place in private. And one of those was around race. And I sat in my office and I didn't know who to contact. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna take a chance. I'm gonna call Renee. And I had kind of a very confidential private conversation about an issue with one of our members surrounding race. And it just gave me the confidence and perspective of somebody I trust on that issue. So Renee, again, thank you for that. And then Patty mentioned the cross-cultural exchange. I recommend to anybody, if you're ever invited, you have to say yes. You're in a large group format, a smaller group format. And I've partnered up with a small credit union manager in Chicago, and we'd have one-on-one conversations. And there are conversations I've never had with anybody else in my life before about what's it like to grow up Black in America, what's it like to grow up and have children, and the experiences they have. And it just gave me an incredible amount of meaning and perspective I never had before. So the training, the awareness is fantastic, but I think it's sometimes those really personal interactions that really sink in, that make the partnership very valuable.
Thank you. I couldn't agree more with you. And Ron, I think it goes well beyond skin color. I think when we think about the polarization in this country, the times that we're living in, I think sometimes is because people don't get to know, don't get exposed to people from different parts, people that think differently. And that's exactly what ACUC is doing. You know, you're having these conversations, you're igniting those conversations. And I think that's where credit unions can really lead the way. Is how can we bring people together? How can we bring people to better understand each other? Because after all, we're all part of this one wonderful country. And how can we come together to make it better? How could we make it come together to work for everyone? So speaking of next steps, that's going to be my next question. And I'm not going to be calling on each of you. I'm going to throw out the question and have you guys jump in as you see fit. Where do we go next? Where do we go from here? What do you see as the next steps, as the next phase of our partnership between leagues and AACUC? What do we need to do next in order to continue advancing better understanding and a deeper relationship? Don't be shy because I will call on you.
Yeah.
John.
Juan, I'll jump in and I'll just, no, Patty, you go first.
Go ahead, Ron.
No, ladies first, Patty, go ahead.
Okay, no, I was going to say, I think we should align one of our league president fly-ins with the annual conference. So with the AACU conference, so we're all getting out there. But I think, you know, continuing and having more conversation when we're meeting as leagues on this topic, I think would be great. I love it when people share on social media, you know, or LinkedIn that they're at these events, because then it reminds me, oh, I got to look for that date and register myself. I think continuing to talk about it is going to continue to drive. You know, one of the things we did is we had Renee, we do these industry calls once a month. So we had Renee as a guest, 4 or 5 months ago. She was on our Zoom call and we had, you know, over 100 credit union or 100 people on there. And I think they need to know the value of affiliation with AACUC and all the great things that they do. So I think just continuing to have the conversations and to talk about it and to spread awareness, because there's still a lot of folks that aren't engaged and don't understand what they do and what they bring. And I think it's really on us as league presidents to continue to have this dialogue.
This conversation is hot, so I'll call on people so it's not a free for all. So Ron, why don't we go to you next?
Yeah, thanks, Juan. So for us, you know, DEI is not static. So as DEI evolves, for us to evolve with it, I think be fantastic. I do get a sense that sometimes DEI tends to be on the larger asset size scale for credit unions. So to have it really be implemented across the system would be fantastic. And those are some thoughts that come to mind. And you know, we'd love to, I think typically it's our own fault that AACUC is really DEI, but I'm sure there are things that we are not taking advantage of within the organization that we should be. So there's ample opportunity there. And those are some thoughts just really quick.
Thank you. How about you, John?
I would just say, I think it's just to build on what was already said, it's that continual collaboration with AACUC, continual engagement in all things, whether it's, you know, coming to a conference, being on a Zoom call, or development of programs. I think that's really, you know, as we all collaborate and make sure that, you know, like just including, I guess to speak of inclusion, we just had, for instance, our gala that we do where we raise money for a Children's Miracle Network, and we happen to have it at the African American History Museum down in DC. Renee was with us, and you know, asking Renee to get up and speak, just to continually engage and try to raise that level of awareness of AACUC for those maybe that aren't engaged or that have been thinking about being engaged, and you know, stepping forward like credit unions do all the time. And I just think just making sure that there's an awareness of AACUC, lifting up the things that they do as we all as leagues work together, collaborate on those programs, on Patty's conference, and you know, try to expand that. So instead of replicating 7 or 10 different conferences, maybe it's, you know, regionally, so everybody can participate and leverage that collective power. We do such a phenomenal job with advocacy, working together. I think we can take those principles and do the same thing with DEI.
Thank you. And I think you hit the nail on the head, John, because I think I would love to create some sort of group to hear these best practices and see how we can bring them to our states, because my goodness, this conversation's been so inspiring. Mark, I see you're unmuted, so I'll go to you next.
Yeah, thanks, Juan. I think one of the things for us to all be successful at DEI is to realize that it's not only about race, that there are so many other elements of inclusion that we need to think about, to be, whether it's about people with disabilities, sexual orientation. We have a really strong women's leadership network here that we've helped to form in other states as well. And I think as we broaden the conversation about DEI, that if we can take it away from being about one thing and making it about many things, that it softens the perspective, and it helps to open our eyes more to the needs that are out there. While we are talking about one specific need, or here we've been talking about in Minnesota about the Black-led crime, there's so much else, so much more that we can do to really create an inclusive environment for people that will really, if we can do that and make it more than just about a race conversation, I think we have so much greater opportunity for long-term success.
I agree, Mark. And one of the things that I really liked about the NCUA DI Summit they did is that they also had access. And it was really eye-opening to hear how folks may have disabilities that you can't even see, but they need certain accommodations, and making sure that everyone feels like they're welcomed, that they're not just welcome, but they have a voice at the table, that they're going to be heard in the credit union movement is so important. John McKenzie, I'll go to you next.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, great comments from everyone, and couldn't agree more with what everyone said. And Patty starting out with referencing supporting the AACUC National Conference. I think everything we can do in that regard is very important. Keeping this a priority and looking at the many components of DEI. You know, I look around our state and look at the credit unions. We have 8 minority depository institution credit unions in the state. We have 6 CDFIs. What they're doing in their communities with their membership, that aspect of basically DEI principles being applied to helping others. So we have both at the credit union level initiatives within their employee groups and within their organizations, and then how that translates with these other credit unions in particular, and how we can support them in what they're doing in their communities. So keeping this a priority going forward, and knowing that there are many aspects to it. We have an employee here at the league, Michelle Carrera, who is very involved with the National Association of Latino Credit Union Professionals. One other organization where there's a lot being accomplished. So there's a lot of work to be done, and we've got a great start. Looking forward to doing our part in Indiana to furthering this cause going forward.
Thank you, John. And how about you, Ron? No, you started this conversation. Never mind. Sorry. See, this is what happens when I go off order. So, Renee, I will throw it over to you. Because this question is one that I think it's relevant to bring you in. What do you see as the next steps for this conversation, for this partnership? Where do we go from here? And I know you have a very special tribute as well. So I will pass it on to you.
Before I do that, Juan, you have not answered one question for yourself. So we need to know what you're doing at your league, please, sir.
Well, I alluded to this earlier. I mean, to me, one of the most important things as a leader in the credit union space is I want to see more people that are diverse in leadership positions. So when I got this position, a lot of people were asking me, well, how does it feel to be the first Latino in this position? And to me, the answer that I always gave folks, which is the truth, is that I see it as a personal mission to change that. How can we inspire younger folks, people of color, to see themselves as having a career, not just a job in the movement? So we are really excited to be partnering with AACUC on that. We're partnering with AUC on that. We're partnering with, I mentioned earlier, we're starting a conversation with Minnesota about how can we bring better understanding and inspire the next generation of leaders, many of whom are of color, to have the tools they need to thrive in our movement. So that, to me, when I see that happen, I know we're going to be really successful, because when you look at the need in this country, it is our communities, Black, Brown communities, and other communities that need the cooperative finance opportunities the most. And I think I want to leave a credit union movement where we've accomplished that, where we bring the power of credit unions to our communities and really have meaningful, profound financial empowerment for all. So I see AACUC as a truly indispensable partner in that, at the core of what we're doing, not just because the programs at AUC are great, but it's also an organization that I find really inspiring. You have results, you have the programs, and I think I couldn't think of a better partner for us than AACUC and the other leagues that are here at the table. I think it's been so inspiring to hear how leagues are partnering with AAC to get things done. And I can't wait to learn more from AACUC, but also learn more from the programs that other leagues have established.
Thank you, Juan. So I think what could happen is that we continue to do this particular call every December, because this is the second year in a row that we've done it. And I absolutely love the involvement of the credit union leagues. And so thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. I think also that you all renew again for another 3 years. And so we can still say all the leagues are still a part of AACUC, because in being a part of AACUC, you get the exposure. Someone once asked me, well, what about those people who are just checking a box? Well, I need you to check that box. Check that box, because you're going to show up to something and going to learn something anyway. So I think that's always good. Little known fact for all of you credit union league presidents. I wanted to be a credit union league president, and then I had decided that Mike Mercer was going to train me on how to do that, and then he retired. So I might have to go look for somebody else to help me do that when it's time for me to pass the torch off of AACUC. So just keep that in mind. I don't want to be the first Black woman to be a credit union league president, but hey, it might be, right? Who knows? So changing up a little bit, thank you again for attending. We're at 1:43. We have a special tribute to John Pembroke. I thought that it was very important that we honor our friend and colleague, dear colleague, with his untimely passing. And so there's 3 organizations that have worked closely with John: AACUC, PSCU, and CUES. And so I asked a few members of these organizations to just do a tribute to him, because I think that it's important that we remember why he was so special, that we remember that CUES has been a long-standing partner with AACUC. As a matter of fact, Fred Johnson, I want to say one of the first CEOs, if not the first, he is the only brother of a lighter hue that's received the Peak Career Lifetime Achievement Award. That's how deep the CUES bond runs with AACUC. So without further ado, Danya, would you please show the tribute? And after that, Danya will take it away.
John Pembroke showed me that great leaders connect. Great leaders connect on an authentic and personal level. When I met John, we discussed getting to know each other, being a part of the credit union movement, what motivated us to be in such a great professional career. We get a chance to give back to communities. And during a discussion, we discovered that we both went to the same university. John and I both attended the University of Pennsylvania. And our mascot at the University of Pennsylvania are the Quakers. From that day forward, whenever John saw me, whenever John spoke with me, he would always say, "How you doing, mighty Quaker?" He always made me laugh. And he said it with that same level of gusto. He didn't care who was around. "How you doing, mighty Quaker?" And it would cause some confusion, as you might imagine, to the folks who were around us who didn't understand the context. And I would say, "Oh, well, John and I went to the same university, University of Pennsylvania, and our mascot is the Quakers." And he would jump in and say, "Not the Quakers, the mighty Quakers. How you doing, mighty Quaker?" That was our connection. I'm glad I had the opportunity to meet and learn from John, a mighty Quaker. And this mighty Quaker promises to carry on that legacy of being a leader that connects with people on a personal and authentic level. Thank you for that, John. I appreciate you.
John Pembroke was a gentle giant in the credit union industry, well respected by so many of his colleagues, regardless of their title, position, race, or color. I met John many years ago while attending the AACUC conferences. And I'm really honored to say that I have been a AACUC member for over 25 years. We were both mentors and mentees to each other, depending on the situation at hand. 10 years ago, I was the board chairman of AACUC. During that time, John, our AACUC president, Renee Sadie White, and I worked very hard to further strengthen the partnership with AACUC. Because of this, we have been successful in educating and advancing credit union professionals. One of our most recent projects was the AACUC mentorship program. I co-chair that along with Dwayne Day. This program was very important to John, to the point that AACUC allowed participants in our AACUC program to belong to AACUC. This had never been done before. John also challenged AACUC to determine the number of African Americans running credit unions. And through our research, we found out that there were over 165 CEOs in the industry that were African American. According to John, we still have work to do. On a personal note, I want to thank John for the mentorship that he provided to me over the years. Having served as a CEO, CFO, COO, board member, board chairman during my professional career, I must give John credit for his advice and encouragement on many occasions. John, your leadership style will be missed by many senior and young professionals in the industry. In March of 2021, John and I were both inducted into the AACUC Hall of Fame. And looking back, I was proud to be alongside with him. We had over 500 participants in a virtual award ceremony during the pandemic on a Tuesday evening. Who does that? AACUC believes that we need to give flowers to professionals in the industry while they can see them. I am so proud that we recognized John that day because he witnessed how much we appreciated and valued his contribution to our industry. It was quite moving that night, and I'm sure John felt the same. Congratulations, John, on being inducted into the AACUC Hall of Fame. AACUC, PSCU, and CU's Board of Directors, their management, their team members are all heartbroken over his passing. John, you are leaving your legacy and your footprint in the sand for others to follow. Thank you, John. A job well done. Rest in peace.
My name is Maurice Smith. I am the CEO of Local Government Federal Credit Union and Civic Federal Credit Union in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a salute to the life and legacy of John Pembroke. Now, I have to admit, this is a little difficult for me to deliver this message because honestly, I feel like John left us too soon. But my faith informed me that we serve a God that never makes a mistake. So I'm left to try to rationalize what is the meaning of this. I remember a scripture in the book of Joshua where the children of Israel had just crossed over the river Jordan, and they were instructed to place stones at the riverside to mark the occasion. And Joshua said, in the times to come, when your children shall ask, what mean ye these stones? In so many words, that would be a conversation starter to explain to the new generation what God had done for them. Each of us have stones in our lives. Maybe it's an occasion, maybe it's an event. In some cases, it's a relationship. John is one of those stones in our lives. You see, he had the kind of personality, the kind of presence that made all of us better. So someday in the future, new credit union professionals will come along and they will ask, what mean ye John Pembroke? This would be an opportunity, a conversation starter for you to talk about his graciousness, his professionalism, his humility. I believe the importance of having a legacy is to show others how to live a life. So when others were asked about John Pembroke, then you would do well to tell them to emulate his legacy. The importance also of a legacy is to show that it had a positive impact on each and every one of us. I think we should honor John's legacy by showing the character that he has shown to the world. If we do that, we pay respect, the highest respect, to an individual who has changed all our lives and made each and every one of us better. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Mary Patouk, Senior Vice President of Industry Engagement at PSCU. I was lucky enough to first meet John when he was interviewing for his role of Chief Marketing Officer at PSCU. He really made a wonderful impression on everyone. Such an accomplished, intelligent, well-credentialed big guy with a soft-spoken voice who really had us leaning in, kind of an E.F. Hutton of his era. While John was familiar with credit unions from his tenure on the board of a church credit union, he really got his in-depth teaching from one of the best, PSCU's then CEO, Dave Serlo, on how the credit unions worked, the why of credit unions, and the power and passion found throughout the industry. And John embraced it all with his commitment to bear down. Like many others, I bonded with John over the love of sports, and I'm going to miss our all too frequent commiserating about our team's performances, his Bears and my Tar Heels. I think John loved sports so much because he was such a natural at himself at coaching, encouraging and guiding us to see what we could deliver and contribute. John's legacy for advancing learning and success in growing others is forever in our hearts and a permanent part of our space. And so to Monica and his family, as well as his extended CU's family, God bless.
Hello, John. John, at PSCU, the halls have never stopped ringing your name. Before I ever met you, I heard about you. And then I sought you out. The leadership, the engagements that you had at PSCU before I got here are invaluable. You have been a leader. You have strong shoulders for us to stand on. We thank you for that. I thank you for the mentorship, the friendship, and the relationship that you and I had. And I share that with many of the employees around the United States and abroad about the things that you taught me. I thank you for just you being you, the man in the room with all the knowledge that's willing to share and humble himself to make sure he connects with the highest of the high and the lowest of the low. It didn't make any difference to you who you actually engaged with. If there was something they needed, you actually achieved it. And when I say the halls, the bell rings, as we created the leadership development plan and training plan for African American men and women. Bold, effective leaders. Thank you for allowing us to engage, for your knowledge and your wisdom to give us guidance. We thank you. We thank the family, your family, for lending them yourself to us. Again, I say thank you, and we will continue on business practices that you've given us. We'll continue on to make you proud.
You know, there's probably not a lot that I can say about John that you haven't already heard at this point, but just a few things. You know, John was a great person and an exceptional leader. And I feel fortunate and honored to have had a front row seat to this, having worked for John and under his leadership for many years at CUES and PSCU. You know, and with John, there was always something you could learn from him, even when he wasn't trying to teach. You know, his mannerisms, his behavior, his thoughtfulness, how he dealt with difficult situations. You know, if you paid close enough attention, you could always take away something after talking with him. And outside of work, John was a great guy to be around. You know, you could always laugh, joke, swap stories with him. He was a huge sports fan, especially when it came to Chicago sports teams. And it didn't matter the sport. He always seemed to be knowledgeable about everything that was going on. You know, that was kind of the funny thing. He was knowledgeable about a lot of things, you know, but he always said that he didn't watch the news. So he would always say that if something was that important, he'd hear about it on ESPN. He was also famous for not being available during the first week of March Madness. You could forget about any meetings or anything. He'd be completely unavailable because he'd be somewhere watching every single game. You know, John also loved music. And I recently went to see a live performance of one of his favorite groups. I was so looking forward to talking with him about that. But I know that one day we'll still have that conversation. John was my friend and my mentor, and I will miss him. I hope this helps you to understand him a little better. Thanks.
Thank you for allowing us a few moments to remember John. John's quiet leadership spoke volumes across our organization and the industry. It may have been misunderstood at times, but it was simply a quiet class. He listened intently and deeply, and he spoke thoughtfully and purposefully. And I think this is why his death seems so loud and so crushing to all of us. His work on earth simply was not done, and we mourn the loss of all the possibilities and all of what was to come. I am so thankful that the AACUC honored John last year with his induction into the Hall of Fame. Being able to honor and celebrate him while he was living was such a wonderful gift, and it should serve as a reminder to all of us how very important it is to bear witness to the lives of those that we love in the here and the now. We miss you, John. Rest in peace.
Hello, I'm Jerry Salsa, Senior Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer of CUES, and Interim CEO. I want to take this opportunity and thank the African American Credit Union Coalition for this opportunity where we can pay tribute to John Pembroke, a great leader, a great person, and just an overall great friend of mine. John's been instrumental in a lot of people's careers, and over the last few weeks, had the opportunity to learn how many people he's touched and how much of a positive impact he has provided, not only our team here at CUCE, but many in the industry and outside the industry. John personally has invested in me over the years, and I can't say enough about him as far as how he's changed me as a leader, but also as a man, as a husband, and my career, my life would have been a whole lot different, I think, without the opportunity to work and be with John and the moments that we've shared. I'll forever cherish that. He's been an inspiration. He's been an inspiration, and I look forward to continuing on the work that we've done together over the years, and look forward to living up to the expectations that we've set, both personally and professionally. I know our organization is very strong, and I know our organization is resilient to situations that we have gone through over this last period of time. And I want to thank our organization, of course, but also our team members, let them know and our members know that we're going to be here for the future, and we're going to live this legacy on, and that's going to be important for us as we go forward, but also it's going to be important for John and his family. Had the opportunities to meet Monica several times, work with her throughout the last few weeks. She would like nothing more than to see John's legacy continue on, and I'm committed to that. Our team's committed to that, and I look forward to that. Again, I'll just close that. I want to thank the AACUC for this opportunity.
Well, thank you everyone for attending today's CTC call. We very much appreciate your time today, and thank you to everyone who participated in our tribute video. Thank you again to our esteemed panelists for your insight and your wisdom. Thank you to our tribute videographer, Jamar Jemison, and to the AACUC Board of Directors, chapter officers, and staff. Thank you also for your support. We realize that Fridays in the month of December are precious, so the fact that you decided to choose to spend time with us on a Friday, we thank you sincerely from the bottom of our heart. Please save the date for next month in January 20th, again at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. The topic will be committing to self and the organization. We look forward to continuing these conversations with you. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon, great weekend, and happy holidays.